Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the Rebel Pastor YouTube channel. This is Pastor Sky over here in Malaysia at the moment. Hope you guys have had a wonderful and awesome week. A lot of things have happened. There was an eclipse in America. I'm not sure any other countries that actually was able to see the eclipse. And of course, there was in the Christian world after the eclipse, people were like, did anyone get raptured? So, lots of different things that have happened. I'm very grateful and thankful for all of you who are joining once again. If you haven't yet, go ahead, hit that like button. Let's see how many like buttons we can actually get for the beginning of this. I'm gonna, you know what? Boom, I just liked it right now too. So just hit that like button to see how many likes we can get. Slowly, we have more and more people coming into this room. Also, if you haven't subscribed, go ahead, subscribe. And if you can, two things I would really appreciate. Number one is, please leave a comment. If you're in the live chat replay, I see John Wick in there, Hold My Bible, Christy's in here too. Go ahead and, subscribe. And if not, please, can you share this video? One of the big goals we have right now at this time, we have 5,100 subscribers. We want to push ourselves to 10K, right? We want 10,000 subscribers, and this can only happen with all of you, with your awesome support. Just click that share button and share it to some of your friends if you think this would be something that they would like, all right? So please, there's actually one thing I do want to be even more thankful for is all the people telling me that they're praying for this, praying for this channel. So I'm very, very thankful for that, because I think that is the most powerful and underrated things people can do. So when you're in your prayer time, just kind of say, hey, God, there's a channel called The Rebel Pastor. Can you please bless this channel and see if we can get, push ourselves to the next stage of 10K. All right. Those of you guys don't notice, I got my hoodie back. Thank God I got my hoodie back. How did I lose it? I know this, I'm like a walking billboard for Nike. It's like Nike 20 times here. But I couldn't find it for 2 weeks. And I was struggling, where am I going to, where did I leave this? And I ended up going to a dog cafe. I've been there 2-3 times before. And right when I was leaving, they're like, oh, is this your hoodie? And I was like, oh my goodness. I just got this 3 days ago. So I'm back in action with this. But I have even better news. On Sunday, I have a friend coming over from China, and they will be bringing me over the first prototype Rebel Pastor hoodie. I can't wait. So these Rebel Pastor hoodies, I haven't even put them into a store or anything like that, but let's just take a look at them from next week's live stream, and you're going to get to see how cool that Rebel Pastor hoodie is, because, I don't want to be someone who's just repping Nike, and Nike's not even sponsoring me, right? So I got to rep the Rebel Pastor. And I think the next thing I do need to get after the hoodie is probably a hat or something along that line, I think. But starting from next week, you're going to see a brand new merch, right? I'm not sure if it's going to be sold or not, but at least I'm going to have one so I can rep and show you guys that there is some Rebel Pastor merchandise also. Oh, last week also, there was a poll that we put up about how often do you read your Bible? And guess what? Drum roll. Number one is daily. We have 40% of our audience that is reading the Bible daily, which is great. 30% is weekly. And then from that point off, it just it craters, right? So it's daily, weekly, and then the next one is yearly. I'm not sure how you read yearly, because how you would remember it, but I'm thinking it's because you go to church on Christmas or Easter, and you probably read the Bible at that time. So I'm thinking that's why it's yearly. And then, of course, monthly is actually the lowest, which is kind of weird. But I'm thinking to myself is, if you're not reading the Bible weekly or monthly, it probably means it's never in your mind. It's not really a thing that you're actually doing. And I do agree. That 10% is probably not going to read your Bible. It's mainly because our audience is not all Christian. Our audience is not all reading the Bible. There's going to be people from other religions and such reading their spiritual book, or there's going to be people who are agnostic or even atheist, right? And are there atheists watching my channel? Guys, go check in the comment section, and you're going to see that there's atheists in there. Right? I had this really, really funny comment right? And basically, like, yeah, this comment is hilarious. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you what they said to me, and I'm not gonna really, I'm not gonna really say everything they said because some of it's kind of rude. But they basically said to me, "Hey, DICK head," right? So that's what they call me. He says, "I wrestle with my son. Guess who wins? Get it?" And then they say Jack ASS, right? And and this person's not an atheist. I think this person is obviously a Christian, but they're reacting to one of my probably one of my most popular shorts. And you know what it is? It's about Jacob wrestling with God. And, it's kind of clickbait when I say that Jacob wrestled with God and won. But if you guys haven't seen that one either, you guys can go check out that video, the whole video of what actually happened when Jacob wrestled with God before he met Esau. So that's one that you guys can take a look at too. And there's going to be another video I'll talk about a little bit later that you guys can also watch because it has to do with today's theme of the Antichrist. Ooh, right? One of the reasons why I want to talk about this is because one of the big topics in Christianity right now is because of this solar eclipse that happened. And then on top of it, it was like, oh, did anyone rapture on this day? And I'm going to tell you guys, no one flew to the sky. No one flew to the air. Everyone would have seen that or whatnot, right? So when I look at that, it's like, yeah, we should talk about the Antichrist because the Antichrist is something that people think about when it comes to the end times. But I'm going to get into this a little bit later. But I watched this. I thought it was going to be a very spiritual movie. It's a horror movie. It's called The Last Omen. And I do want to talk about this, right? Because it talks about the Antichrist and like demon possession, all these other different things like this. And sometimes you do want to get scared. Sometimes you do. And I went there just to kind of, feel life again, I guess. I don't know how to say it. But after watching it, one of the big themes is the Antichrist. And that's why I'm going to go into that theme a little bit later. Now, since I'm talking about the Antichrist and, that movie that's kind of like a horror movie and such, oh my gosh, guys, guess what? Guess what? This is going to be a reoccurring theme. What am I doing at this moment? I am gathering tissues. And the reason why I'm doing 4 layers is because the last time, it's like 2 layers was not enough. It just wasn't. I'm going, you know what? Just in case, I don't want... the flood to happen again and go through the tissue. You guys didn't see it. It went through the tissue last time. Yeah. 1 second. All right. I'm back, right? So, yeah, there's no nose flood this time. It was actually quite normal. Right. So thank you guys. I think your prayers are working that my nose isn't getting too stuffed from this. Okay. What was I talking about? Oh, okay. I talked about the movie, The Last Omen, right? And when I was thinking about this movie, we think about all these ghost stories and demons and other things like this. And I'm not sure about you guys, but I've experienced many of these demon things. Like, I wasn't demon possessed, duh, right? But, I've experienced and I've heard many people's firsthand testimonies. Even my cousin was like demon possessed by like 5 demons and such. And there's so many stories. I'm not sure if you guys have actually seen ghosts or not. But even for me, the very first time I experienced anything that was like of the demonic, right? The spiritual possessions, the demon possessions and such. I was like 11 years old, 12 years old maybe. And I was at a church camp or church retreat. And this is how crazy it was. I've never experienced anything. I've only heard about it. You only see it in the movies. So we're at this retreat. And, we had the campfire. It's really dark at night. And there's like a mess hall. It fits 300 people. And for some reason, the camp counselors were stopping everyone from going past a certain point. They said, everyone go to your cabins. I'm like, what is going on? And being the mischievous rebel pastor that I am, I was like, meeting 2 of my friends, I was like, all right, let's go sneak around and let's see if we can go figure out what's going on. And we went all the way around into the dark forest. right? So we can go all the way around, go past all the camp counselors and go into the mess hall, the place that they were trying to stop us from going into. And what happens is the mess hall has the opening door, like the entrance doors, and then you have a place where you put all your shoes, take off your shoes and stuff like that, and then you have another door that opens into the mess hall. Right when we opened the door, like the first entrance door, it was the smell of rotten eggs. Like it was so strong. It wasn't, rotten eggs is also the same smell as sulfur. And we're like, what is that smell? And we're about to walk in, and a counselor, like a movie is like grabs, like, right? He was like, what are you doing? We're like, oh, we just wanted to see what's going on. They're like, hey, come over here. And we're like, what is going on? And what we found out was the pastor's daughter, younger than us. I think she was like 8 or 9 years old at that time. She was spiritually possessed. And there was the pastor doing an exorcism inside that hall, but there's only 2 of them in there in a hall that fits 300 people. But that smell of sulfur was coming all the way to the outside, doorway. And it was the first time we ever experienced anything like that. And we were like, you couldn't really freak out at that time. We're like, what? Like, what does that mean? We're not even sure because we've just never dealt with that type of thing. Only later, I was like, man, the pastor's daughter was spiritually possessed. I'm like, that's crazy. And that was my first experience, like 11, 12 years old, right? Like something like that happening. Now, 20, 30 years later, I've probably been through, like personally myself, I've dealt with, I think, 2 or 3 demon possessions. One of them was successful. One was not successful. What was the third one? Let me tell you another one. Another interesting story that, like these spiritual possessions and the demon possessions and such. When I was in South Africa, there's this one, like, I went over there to start a church. We pioneered a church, and then I went over to, I went to Australia after that. And I get a call from South Africa. And it's from the church leader there. And they're like, you have no idea what's going on right now. I was like, what's happening? So in Africa, that church had Bible studies every single Friday. Like Friday nights were Bible studies, 30, 40 people coming to the church, eating together, just having a great time, right? And this church leader was inspired, before the Bible study to pray for people. So he announces, before we start Bible study, does anyone need prayer? And this girl just stands up right away and she's like, I need prayer. And the thing that was interesting about this girl was everyone knew that there was something wrong. Meaning, there was churches that said she was spiritually possessed. Other people said she was like mentally ill, and she was on like some drugs for her, mentally ill state or whatever it was. And people were deciding whether it's spiritual or is it mentally ill. They couldn't figure it out, right? But this girl puts her hand up, and kind of like we all knew she was someone that could possibly be like spiritually possessed. So they took this girl upstairs, and 3 of the leaders went upstairs to pray for this girl. So there's the leader, and there's another person who's very, very strong in faith. But there's also this one other girl that went up to pray. But she is someone. She's a microbiologist, and she's someone who's more physical. She only believes in what she's a scientist, right? She doesn't really believe in the spiritual realm. And what happened was they start praying for this girl, right? And as they're praying for this girl, they're praying and praying. And then at the very end of the prayer, we say, in Jesus' name. And the moment the pastor says, in Jesus, and the moment he said Jesus, the girl starts to scream, like she's just screaming because she doesn't want to hear the name. And they kind of look like, what's going on? And then she falls on the ground, right? So now she's on the ground on her belly, and she's trying to crawl out of the room, but she's fighting with herself. Right? She's fighting with herself, trying to crawl out of that room. And they're kind of watching this like, what is going on? Like, what is going on right now? And the microbiologist, the scientist, remember, doesn't believe in these spiritual things. Arms are crossed, and she's thinking to herself, just thinking, this is fake. Oh, totally faking it. And that's what this microbiologist is thinking. All of a sudden, the girl on the ground, she stands up and goes to the microbiologist, and she says, do you think I'm faking? And she freaked out. The microbiologist freaked out like, oh my gosh. The other girl who's praying, in her head, she was praying like this. She's like, Jesus help, please, Jesus help her. Jesus, like she's praying, Jesus help her in her head. And the girl turns around, looks at that girl and says, not even Jesus can help me. And they prayed, and nothing. It didn't work at that time. And I get the call saying, this is what just happened. And, we're all like, what? Like, that's so crazy. Like, there's a bunch of these different types of stories that it's either firsthand, like I actually helped someone with a demon possession, or it's firsthand stories of this happened to me, this happened to me, remember, I was a missionary. I've been to 23, 24 different countries, and I'm working in the spiritual area. And because of this is why I get to see and hear about all these experiences of the demonic, of the spiritual realm. And I think it's like, there's one person, I'm not going to tell you the whole story because I don't want to make this into like a ghost story type of like podcast. I'll maybe tell it to you at another time, but there's someone that I helped with an exorcism. And it's kind of like the movies where they will take a knife and go to the wall and start carving words into the wall. And I had to deal with that person for like 3 weeks until they got better. And then they believed in Jesus and stuff like that too. But like, there's a bunch of these things, and a lot of it is true. It may not be as Hollywood as the movies, but I've seen it and it's true. I've seen it. I've experienced it. It reminds me of a Bible verse. And I think this is a very, very famous verse. When you talk about putting on the full armor of God, right? In Ephesians chapter 6, right before Paul gets into talking about the armor of God, right before it is Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. And what Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12 says is our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms, right? So this is something that, for me, because I've experienced it, I've seen these things happen, I've worked with demon-possessed people. I'm telling you guys right now, that is one area I will never deny because I've experienced it, because I've seen it with my own eyes, right? I probably have another 20 stories in Africa, Taiwan, in Korea. Wow, if I tell you the one in Korea, it just freaks people out. There's some of this stuff that is so vivid and so scary that you wouldn't need special effects because it's a true story. And because I've seen all these things, when I go to watch like say scary movies, horror movies, exorcism, stuff like this, it doesn't really scare me that much if it's done too much like Hollywood, like The Last Omen. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But I'm more of like, the more real it is, the more I'm like, ooh, that is real. And that's when like I have goosebumps and stuff like that. Like my hair stands on its end. I'm like, oh, this is real. But it's something that I've experienced, something I know that we have power over. So yeah, well, maybe we'll do something a little bit later. Yeah, I know. I can see some people are like listening to this, these stories, and like their sayong is like, I'm alone. And listening to these stories. But remember, the good part for everyone in Asia is that it's the morning. Right? It's like 9:20 in the morning right now. So we can't be too afraid unless you're in your room in the dark under your covers watching this. Yeah, you might be a little bit scared, but probably more the people in America and Canada, because it's like around 6 to 9 p.m. around there, and that's where they're kind of more in the darkness and at night. But yeah. Wow. The seer is like telling Seong, just mute it and enjoy the chat. Right? It's like, don't even listen to him. Just mute it and enjoy your time in the live chat replay. Karen is like, oh, there's a lesson on Satan. Yeah, maybe some people are doing Bible studies. Oh, John Wick says he helped with an exorcism. Oh, who says that these days? That's true. Right? And, well, there's an interesting thing that Karen brought up is being mentally ill and demon possession. Are they different? I would say to you guys that they are connected. They are definitely connected. Like one can lead to the other. So I would say that they are connected in some sense. Like I'm someone who really believes in that spiritual realm, that we are fighting against the dark forces in the evil spiritual realm. And when we say mentally ill, I'm not going to deny mental illness. There is mental illness. And there are also mental illnesses that bring people into that spiritual realm more easily. And there are some people who are spiritually influenced that make them turn more mentally ill. Do you know what I mean? So I would say they're not the same, but they're connected. They're definitely connected. Yeah, I'm glad you guys like this epic story. Yeah, epic story. But, oh, there's Lucy in here. I think it's the first time I've seen Lucy here. Ina's in here. And, yeah, bunch of people coming in. I hope you guys are enjoying it so far. But I'm going to make a poll. I'm going to make a poll inside the YouTube channel. And that YouTube channel is going to talk about, have you seen or experienced ghosts, demons, Satan, or, any of these different things? Have you experienced them? I'm going to put that into the YouTube, like the main page. Right? But I do want to do, I don't want to get too deep into the spiritual things because a lot of times people will like mute it and they'll stop listening. So I don't want to get too deep into it. But let me kind of shift focus for a little bit so that our mind can settle down and not be into that demon realm. So lately, I actually have started to exercise again. Even right before this, I did 10 push-ups. I don't even know if you call that exercise, but my inside poll for you guys right now is, how many of you are exercising right now? Are you exercising, playing sports, both, or none, right? Like we're going to put that into the chat room there and see what you guys are, see that this poll on the inside. Are you guys exercising? Because it's great for your mental health too, but exercising, sports, both, or none, right? Or maybe, I'm not sure if there's anything else. I think running is also considered exercise anyway, so I'm not going to separate those things. And I am not going to say anything bad about people who don't like to exercise. Like Christy, right? Christy, she's like, I hate exercise, but she likes sports, right? So I am, this is something that, let's see the health of the people in our chat rooms, right? Are you someone who's exercising, sports, or none? For me, I'm more into sports, just getting more into exercise. So go ahead in that chat room, go ahead and start clicking. Ooh, got a bunch of people clicking their 10 votes. Exercise, none, it's 27% doing none, 25% none. At the moment, exercising seems to be bigger than sports. But yeah, we'll keep that in there for like the next 5 minutes or so. Just get your minds off the demon stuff. Oops, I said it again, so I put your mind back there. Go back to the poll. Go back to the poll. Right? Actually, there's one thing that that's quite interesting. I think it's quite a cool thing to think about. When I come to do the live stream, I come super early. Like I leave my house around 6 a.m. I get here 6:40 around there, and I have basically 2.5 hours to kill. And I was talking to my tech person, and she was like, "Why do you come so early? Next time, just come a little bit later, and you'll be fine." And I'm like, "Well, I one of the things that I like about coming early is my heart and my mind get to settle down, and I'm not going to be like frantic, like, oh, am I going to do this? Am I going to do this? What's going to happen over here, right?" And it kind of makes me think about a lot of us when it comes to where is our mind when it comes to us meeting God. You know what I mean? Like, where's our mind when we come to meet with God? And, this has to do with like going to service, not only just going to services, but when you get into prayer. And I think one of the best ways for us to praise, worship, to come before God is coming with the right state of mind. And just like me coming, I'm not saying go to church 2 hours early, but I do think it's very healthy and it's a great thing to meet God in the right mindset. And when you go to church, I don't think it's very good for your mindset or to really listen to the gospel, to listen to the sermon, or to even listen, not even listening to the sermon, even praise and worship. Haven't you guys ever had that? Let me tell you what happened to me last Sunday. Every Sunday I wake up early. I wake up early, same thing. I'm at 6 a.m. getting ready. I go to the cafe to get a coffee around 8 a.m. because service for me starts at 10 a.m. So I'm there at the cafe 8 a.m. I'm working on my podcast. I'm doing a bunch of other things, getting my heart and my mind settled and comfortable and ready. And then this cafe is like 10 minutes away from the church. So it starts at 10 a.m. So I'll leave the cafe around 9:30, get there by 9:40. I'll have time to pray and really get my mind in the right space. But one thing I do notice, and this is something that I did in the past too, is sometimes we are so stingy with time, but not even for like good reasons. Like, what does that mean? Sometimes we just want to sleep a little bit more. So what we do is we plan our trip to church with the exact time, right? The exact time, which is like, it takes me 8 minutes to take a shower, then it takes me another 15 minutes to get ready, and then it takes me 25 minutes to get to church. So church starts at 10, so I got to get there at 10. So 25 minutes before that, okay, all right, so I got to wake up at 9:05. It's kind of like, that math was terrible, by the way, but you kind of set your time so perfectly that you're in a rush, that you leave no room for something happening. Like, you can't find your watch. You can't find this. Oh, the water is out. Like, there's so many things that can happen in a given day that you're frantically, and you're rushing to church and you're running into service. Praise is already started. You sit down, your heart is beating like crazy. You have to settle yourself down. You're like, oh my gosh. And you're not even ready to listen to the word or praise God. And what I say is, it's far better for you to wake up even earlier. Go get a coffee or a tea or kombucha, whatever it is. Just grab a seat, sit down, relax your heart and mind, and go to church. But here's the thing. Got to the cafe at 8, 9:30, I leave, but there's this huge problem. So I'm leaving the parking lot and I'm tapping my card to get out, and all of a sudden the machine charges me 5 times the amount. I'm like, what? It's like it went from 6 to 30. And I was like, what the heck? And I pressed the button and they're trying to help me how to solve this problem. I get to church like 10:05. Praise has already started. I'm in that frantic zone, in that frantic mode, right? And you can't really get that focused. You just can't. And I think it's far better, like even for work. When we go to work, it's not like we get to work, I start work at 9, I'll get to work at 9 a.m. No, people go a little bit early. They go a little bit early. They might get some breakfast. They get a coffee. They settle down a bit, and then they start work. And I would say this wouldn't be any different with us meeting with God. If we're going to give true worship, if we're going to listen to the words of God in a proper way, we got to do it in the right mindset, not getting there, rushing there, and then all of a sudden, okay, God, I made it on time. I think more than just making it on time, it's about being in the right mindset to worship, to praise, to listen to the word. And I don't know, I think some people might not agree with me on this one. I would say, this could be controversial, guys. Very, very controversial. Okay? I would say you should dress well going to church. And I know if you're from California, because I've been to churches in California, I've been to some churches where everyone's wearing ripped jeans and like, like they have massive cleavage. I'm talking about guys, not girls, right? Massive cleavage with a big like necklace of like cross and it's half the size of their body. And then, like I'm not saying that's a bad thing. What I'm saying is we should come before God in our in how we're dressed the best. And I do think sometimes we try to make it too comfortable just so that more people will come to church. You know what I mean? It's like you kind of lower a certain standard because this is just my thinking, guys. And I want you guys can write whatever you want in the chat room, whatever you want in the comments. I think that what does it mean to come to church is to come holy. What does it mean to be holy? Holy doesn't mean come in Giorgio Armani, DKNY, in Gucci. That's not holy, right? It could be, but what does holy mean? Holy means to set apart. To set apart, which means you set something apart for God. And I would say that if you go on a date, okay, because remember, we look at God as a relationship. This is a relationship between us and God. If it's between me and God, and this is my relationship with God, who I love, who I worship, who I adore, loves me, gave me everything that I have, right? When you guys go on a date, how do you dress, right? And people try to look really nice. They look their best, right? And I would say that when it comes to church too, coming before God once a week, I would say dressing your best. Like I would dress in a suit or with a jacket, right? And making sure that I'm dressed nice because that's how I see God. This is my relationship with God, that one time I come to praise and worship. And I am more on that side of how we should dress to church. Now, I'm not going to dress to church in a suit when I go visit a church and I know that their style is not, suits and ties and stuff like that too. Because, when in Rome, do as the Romans, right? But for me, I would say that the churches that I would more tend to turn towards is having that type of mindset. Because I'll tell you this, the way you dress really affects the way you think and your mentality. There is a difference. There really, really is. So haven't you guys ever had when you dress up really nice or you get new clothes, you feel different? It's true. And I do think that it's good that we come before God in our, as you call it, Sunday best. That's my thoughts. You guys can have different thoughts, and I'm okay with it. You guys can check out the comments. I comment on every single comment out there. I do my best. I know that in the future, when there's more and more subscribers, it's going to take forever to answer every single comment. But right now, I do. Even that person who called me the DICK head, even that person, very, very nice about it. It's like, hey, thank you so much. I respect your opinion, even if you think I'm like this, or if you think I'm wrong in my doctrine or how I interpret the Bible, I'm okay. And if you look at it, I'm very, very polite with most people. Like I really don't like it when people are cursing and stuff in the comment section, but that's kind of my attitude towards it is, yeah, that's my thoughts. If you disagree, you disagree, and I'm okay with it, and I'm not going to force you to do what I think. Okay? All right, so let's get into this movie review about The First Omen. Now, I went there to be entertained and also to see some type of doctrine. Like, I wonder what they think about the Antichrist. And this is a spoiler alert, but I think that no one should watch that movie anyways. It is just a terrible movie. If I were to rate it right now, no, I'm not going to blow my nose. Just dab, dab, dab into the garbage can. Okay, so what was I just saying? Oh yeah, if I were to give it a ranking, I was going to be like, ooh, I should give it a 6.66 because it's about Satan and the Antichrist. And I'm like, no, it's not even worth 6.66. I say it's worth like half of that, a 3.33. That's what it's worth to me. It's not even worth that much. It's something that's not even worth watching. I wasn't even scared. I wasn't even entertained. So if you haven't seen The Last Omen, Spoiler alerts, and just mute it for like 20 seconds, all right? So let me tell you, like, this is, yeah, I'm gonna tell you how disappointed I was. This is the premise. Okay, this is the premise, okay? So I'm not spoiling it because this is the premise. So the Catholic Church apparently captured the beast. From Revelation chapter 13, there is the beast, okay? And this beast is like a dragon goat looking thing, and it's a real monster, okay? So the Catholic Church caught this beast, dragon looking animal, okay? And it's literally a dragon looking animal. And what the Catholic Church does, they get these innocent women to mate with the beast. Right? So the beast mates with this woman. The woman has a child. And then the beast then has to mate with its own daughter. And then whoever the first son is, so there's like all these women that have been put into this sacrifice. They don't die though, but they have these babies. And these women, the beast mates with a woman, and then when the daughter comes out, he mates with his daughter, and the first son that is born becomes the Antichrist. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about this, guys. And my apologies to anyone who really believes this. My apologies, but for me, I'm just like, really? So the Catholic Church, how do they even catch the beast? Can the beast even be caught? Right? It's so, I was just listening, I watched it like, what is this? This is like, in my mind, I was like, this is ridiculous. Like how it's coming out this way. And you guys can, if you guys have muted it, unmute now. Unmute, right? And then you guys can listen. So if you're actually going to watch The Last Omen, yeah. I think it's good to watch it if you're going to do a review on it, and that's about it. And this is kind of what brought me to, this is kind of what brought me to this topic of the Antichrist. So let me give you a couple thoughts on this, right? So the first thing you see here is the Catholic Church catches the beast. I don't even know how that's possible, but the Catholic Church is the one behind having the beast. It's a small fringe group of the Catholic Church. So it's like that a cult within the Catholic Church is kind of doing these things. Now, let me tell you my thoughts on this. So firstly, the beast. The beast is coming out in Revelation chapter 13, right? So we're not going to get into that. We're not going to go to that verse yet. But in Revelation chapter 13, it talks about two beasts. One that comes out of the ocean, one that comes from the earth, okay? And first thing I want to say is, let's take a look at, I feel like I'm doing like a Bible study. All right, everyone, let's open our Bibles to Hosea chapter 12, verse 10. And we're going to take a look at the Bible verse, what God says to the prophet Hosea, right? Okay, I'm not going to do that, but, you don't have to open your Bibles because I'm going to show it to you right now. So in Hosea chapter 12, verse 10, very, very good verse. It says that, I spoke to the prophets, gave them many visions, and told parables through them, okay? So one of the things we see here is God is telling like, hey, when I give dreams, when I give visions to these prophets, I'm telling you parables. I'm telling you things symbolic through them. And we do know that the entire book of Revelation is this vision, this revelation that Apostle John was given on the island of Patmos. And he's receiving this, and I would say I think when you look at Hosea chapter 12, verse 10, through this vision, there's a lot of symbolism and imagery in this that is for us to understand. It's not a literal thing. So that's my first thought. I think another verse that you can read, like some people say to me, like, does the New Testament do that? And I would say Jesus did the same thing. If you look at Matthew 13, 34 and 35, what does Jesus say? Jesus spoke all things to the crowd in parables. He did not say anything to them without using a parable. And verse 35 is the key. He's like, yeah, because I have to fulfill the prophecy that's in the book of Psalms that says, I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter things hidden since the creation of the world. Right? So when we look at this, we're like, okay. So the first thing that's my first thought is, if you look at the book of Revelation about the beast, it's really interesting because we have to look at the book of Revelation more in symbolism and parables. And I'm not saying I know exactly what that beast is, But we do need to know is that we can't just look at it and say, oh, there's a dragon beast that mates with a woman and then sleeps with his daughter and then has the Antichrist. Like, this is something where I'm like, I think it's something that it seems way too Hollywood, okay? Now, the second thing I want to talk about is the Antichrist. And this is kind of what the topic we're looking at right now. And the Antichrist is, I think it's very misunderstood in the Bible because there's like several different parts in the Bible that do talk, or people say it talks about the Antichrist. But when you look at it, I think they're talking about three separate and different things, okay? So the first verse, we're going to take a look at Apostle John, because Apostle John was the one that brought up Revelation chapter 13, right? He's the one that received the visions to write the book of Revelation. But Apostle John also has the three epistles, right? First, second, and third John. So let's take a look at 1 John chapter 2, verse 22. And this is where John brings up this first, occurrence of the Antichrist. And what it says in 1 John 2:22, it says, "Who is the liar? It is whoever denies that Jesus is the Christ. Such a person is the Antichrist, denying the Father and the Son." So we get a definition from John. What Antichrist, what does it mean? Antichrist is anyone who denies Jesus, which makes sense because anti means against, Christ, which is Jesus Christ. Anyone who's against Jesus Christ is the Antichrist. Anyone who denies is the Antichrist. So this can mean multiple people, not just a singular person, okay? Which leads us to the next verse in 1 John chapter 4, verse 3. Once again, we go into the Antichrist. It says, "Every spirit that does not acknowledge Jesus is not from God. This is the," take it, "spirit of the Antichrist." It's not a human, spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard is coming and even now is already in the world, which this was written 2,000 years ago. So what Apostle John is saying is, guess what, guys? We're not looking at just a singular being. We're talking about the spirit of the Antichrist, the spirit of the one who denies that Jesus is Christ, denies Jesus and God. And guess what? You think he's coming? Like you heard he's coming. He's already here. And that was 2,000 years ago, right? So when we look at this, we're like, I think we know who he's talking about. This Antichrist, the one that denies Jesus, who is the one that is against Jesus? It's Satan. And Satan is a spirit. The spirit of the Antichrist working in people to come against Christ. This is Satan. So when you look at this, John is actually telling us anyone, not a singular person, multiple people, anyone who denies Jesus is the Antichrist. But even underneath that person is the spirit of the Antichrist, the one that has been denying since the very beginning, which is Satan. And that's why we already know this? Satan is the one that tempts us away from Christ. Satan is the one that wants us to deny Christ. Satan wins when we don't come to God. We already know this. And what John is telling us is, that's the spirit of the Antichrist. There is a spirit that's already here. It's already been here this entire time. It's Satan. It's been there since the beginning from Adam and Eve, the one that tempts away from God. This next verse is 1 John chapter 2, verse 18. And this is also a very, very good verse. And look what it says. "Dear children, this is the last hour," right? The end times. "And as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, even now many Antichrists have come." This is how we know it's the last hour. What does it say? Not a singular. Many have come. Many, many have come. Even from 2,000 years ago, people who deny Christ. Even today, are there Antichrists? Absolutely, because there is a spirit in this world that is making people deny, tempting people away from Jesus. The spirit of the Antichrist. So this is the first thing I want us to understand about the Antichrist. What is talking directly about the Antichrist? That's the first thing is, these are things talking directly about the Antichrist. The other verses that we reference, like, is there a one Antichrist? That reference would be like 2 Thessalonians and 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And this entire chapter Paul is talking about the man of lawlessness, right? The man of lawlessness. And in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, I didn't actually prepare this one, but in verse 7, it says that this man of lawlessness, and this is 2,000 years ago, remember, his power is already at work. So when you think of the man of lawlessness, but the power has already been at work from 2,000 years ago, if we take that literally, it means that man of lawlessness has been alive for 2,000 years. Like, well, what does this mean? Like, who is this man of lawlessness? It doesn't say specifically he's the Antichrist, but a lot of people are assuming that maybe this man of lawlessness is the Antichrist. I'm bringing up these verses for you to shift your perspective on, is this really talking about the Antichrist? Is it really about this or not? And it's not as simple as we think, where you'll get these movies and these Hollywood movies that are going to kind of put fear into people of faith. Like, oh my goodness, there is the man of lawlessness. And people are going to start saying stuff like, oh, it's Donald Trump. Oh, it's Hamas. Or, oh, it's Iran, the leader of Iran, or this or that. It's like people are all of a sudden just kind of spitting these words out here and there. And it kind of brings this fear and like pandemonia amongst believers, like, oh my gosh, solar eclipse, is it the rapture? And the answer is, we get solar eclipses every year. It happens every year. And we're freaking out even more from these things. Guys, Revelation is very, very symbolic. Very symbolic. Like in Revelation chapter 13, verse 11, what does it say? It says like, oh, there's a second beast coming out of the earth, 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. How does a dragon speak? Spoke like a dragon? Like, what does a dragon speak like? It's very symbolic. It's very hidden meanings inside these things. And if I were to give you like another example of a beast that's more explained, like the parable is literally explained, is Daniel chapter 7. When you look at Daniel chapter 7, verse 19 and 20, very, very interesting, because Daniel too has a vision. And like Hosea said, God gives visions and gives parables or symbolism through it. And guess what Daniel sees? In Daniel 7, 19, 20, he sees a beast. I want to know the meaning of the 4th beast. Different from all the others, most terrifying, iron teeth, bronze claws, crushed and devoured its victims, trampled underfoot whatever was left. And then what's on top of the beast's head? Verse 20. I also want to know about the 10 horns on its head and about the other horn that came up, before which 3 of them fell. The horn that looked more imposing than the others, that had eyes and a mouth, that spoke boastfully. Ah! But guess what? 4 verses later, it gives you the answer. 4 verses later, right? What does it say? Daniel chapter 7, verse 24. It gives you the answer of what this beast is. The 10 horns are symbolizing 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them, another king will arise, different from the earlier ones. He will subdue the 3 kings, which means it's not talking about a literal beast with 10 horns, but you see this beast and the horns are symbolizing, this beast is symbolizing 10 kings. So when you look at the Bible, there's a lot of things that we see. It's like, wait a second, is it really talking about like a beast, a dragon with 2 horns, like a goat, speaks like a dragon? Or what did it say in Revelation 13:11? 2 horns like a lamb, but it spoke like a dragon. And these are the things I do think we have to look at. And when you understand what all these verses I gave you right now, you're going to get down to, wait, so you're not saying that the beast is this dragon-looking being that mates with a woman, has a child, sleeps with his daughter, and then has a son, and that son is the Antichrist. Like, you got to think about this. And I think because we're not carefully looking at these verses, and I'm not saying that, oh, it's exactly this or it's exactly this. What I'm telling you guys right now is when we start to look carefully at them, we have to be able to say, reasonably speaking, or when I look at the Bible and how the Bible interprets itself, this could actually, most likely is going to be something else. It most likely is going to be something else. Spirit of the Antichrist, guys. Spirit of the Antichrist. Who is the spirit that denies Jesus? It's Satan. What is Satan doing to everyone in the world? Trying to tempt us, trying to tempt believers to do what? To get away from Christ. The spirit of the Antichrist. And that's what John talked about. We read those 3 verses in 1 John. That's what John talked about. Like, he specifically talked about the Antichrist is this. And that's why I'm bringing this up to you guys is I don't want people to get too freaked out by these Hollywood things. And I put in the link. I don't know if there's a link, but I posted in the description below. I do have a video I made before on the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast. And of course, the video is back then at that time, people were saying the vaccines, the COVID vaccines were the mark of the beast. So it is talking about the vaccines too, but it's mainly about the mark of the beast. So guys, go ahead, check in the description below, and you will see that there's going to be a video on the mark of the beast. And I will post that other, what was the other video I was talking about again? I said there's another video that you should watch. No. What? Oh, Jacob wrestling with God. That's like the most popular one right now. Like the short is like 20,000 views right now. But it's like, there's a full video on it. I don't understand why people can comment on just a 50-second clip, but they won't watch the full video that I made to get the proper understanding of what I really meant. But I'll put that description in the post below too, right? So Jacob wrestling with God, what does it actually mean? All right. So that is something that I thought would be very, very interesting for a lot of us to look at, right? I think it's something that we should, I do think these are good topics, especially for those that already know like the foundation of faith. Of course, for people who are just learning, I think you should learn the gospel. If you're new to God, you should learn the gospel and such. But when it comes to those, how many times have you guys heard that Jesus died on the cross and rose again, and he died for your sins, and now we're saved because of that? We've heard that so many times that a lot of times we do want to get into deeper things. Yes, it's not going to affect our faith as in like, oh, I'm leaving because I don't know what the mark of the beast is. It's more of, it brings us deeper into the scriptures, and it allows us to kind of get bigger insight of who this God is, what kind of God we're believing in such too. All right. So yeah, that is the big thing I want to talk about today, which was the Antichrist. And I hope that, I know there's going to be some jokes in there, or maybe not even jokes. I think some people are going to really comment about this video and say, you're the Antichrist, Pastor Sky. That's my prediction. That's my prophecy. That's my prophecy. It's going to be out there. But yeah, that's kind of what I want to talk about. Hope you guys really enjoyed today's podcast. If you have any questions or anything else, go ahead, write it in the chat room. Or if not, you can write in the comment section. So remember, if you guys haven't done it yet, please click like. Right? Click like, hit that like button. And who's in here? My mom is in here. My mom is in here making fun of my dragon voice. She's Irene Kim, by the way. And yeah, really, really happy seeing John Wick, the Seer, Ina. We have Christie's in here. Hold My Bible. Always fun to see Hold My Bible in here too. But I'm very, very grateful and thankful for everyone watching. Hope you guys had a really, really good time just as I had. And yeah, we'll see you guys again next week again. All right, everyone, take care. This is the Rebel Pastor, Pastor Sky. See you later. Bye-bye.